Biden will hold a virtual summit with the Chinese president. Now, White House officials say Mr. Biden has been preparing for this summit for days. They say he wants the United States to compete more with China. Repeat that, compete more with China. But this is key without stoking a military conflict. He'll apparently lay out the rules of the road on issues like tensions with Taiwan. But he's prepared apparently to cooperate too on things like climate change that we were just pointing out from COP26. And of course, nuclear weapons. There are, of course, those economic issues. A group of business leaders is urging the president to get rid of tariffs still left over from the Trump administration. Rich Lesser is the global chair of Boston Consulting Group. He joins me now from Washington. Can't think of a better person as we see all of this on the go in Washington. Let's start, though, with China. The U.S.-China Business Council, it's given voice, right, to many saying, look, it is time to get rid of those China tariffs, because they're doing harm to Americans, American businesses, farmers, workers, family. And yet, to me, it seems that the American business person, perhaps the American corporation, has not really understood that the U.S. seems to have reached a reckoning with China. We just heard from Phil, right? Everyone's coming to terms that these are strategic competitors. What does that mean for business right now?
So I think business very much understands the strategic competitor side, but wants it to be done in a productive way that supports the growth in economies in both countries, enables each to protect its interests, of course, but to do it in a way that sets up long-term success. And these are the two largest economies in the world, and they need to be able to get along in a productive relationship. And I think most business leaders respect that governments need to sort of set priorities, but hope that it'll be done in a way that promotes growth, promotes effectiveness, keeps costs down for consumers. That's the focus.
Can it be done, though? I mean, this is not naive 2010, right? We've seen American businesses get burned in China. We've seen others that still want to pile in aggressively. You make such a good point. This is a colossal trading relationship that has to be kept on the rails. And yet, do you see that, you know, with some guardrails put in place, do you see the potential of that relationship, or do you think American businesses will still be gun shy?
Look, I think the goal is to understand where there's disagreement and then look for common interests. I would say, you know, if we look to last week in the climate announcement that was jointly done by the U.S. and China, I think it was really a very important moment for COP, for the world overall. It was important for those two countries to realize that yes, they'll compete on many levels, but there are common interests, starting with protecting the climate. And when they can show that they can work together, or at least have a constructive dialogue that hopefully will lead to working together in protecting those interests, the world will respond in a favorable way, and it'll promote the interests of citizens in both countries. Now, that's the starting point. Climate is job one, I think, in many ways, but hopefully that spirit can now extend in other directions. Obviously, today's meeting is another good step on that journey. I think expectations probably should be low. There's a long way to come back from the depths that the relationship has gotten to, but hopefully this is a good step.
And let's try and, you know, dig a little deeper on the issue of climate. I mean, we had that statement from the United States and China together. I've been interested to hear your comments, though, in the last few months, really talking about business needing government to put a price on carbon. There are many businesses that are still resisting that, though. In terms of what you've seen happen in Glasgow over the last couple of weeks, do you think that we are much closer to that now, that actually fixing a price on carbon?
So let me just step back a second, and I will get to that. There were a lot of important areas of progress over the last 2 weeks. The number of businesses that have stepped up on climate, the role of the business community in COP is like none other in history. And I think the role the private sector can play in the real economy and the financial sectors is very encouraging. I think the governments of the world have shown that they can start to make progress and acknowledge important elements, whether it's a phase down of coal, whether it's methane, whether it's what we need to do to support countries going through this journey. Businesses, the main business associations have talked quite extensively about a price on carbon. We heard it from the Business Roundtable, the European Roundtable. We've heard it from the Alliance of CEO Climate Leaders that I'm a part of at the World Economic Forum. And I do think governments in different parts of the world, Europe and Canada are good examples, are recognizing that. It'll be a challenge in the US, it'll be a challenge in other parts of the world. But the truth is, we need to transform the economy. Carbon is an externality that is not priced in today. Finding a way to price, which is not necessarily a carbon tax, it could be an emissions trading system, it could be other ways, is the way to make progress faster on many parts of the real industrial economy.
So, and I'm just going to try and put a button on that from COP26. A success, you'd say? Qualified one then?
I think one of my colleagues who was there the entire time and so described it as two points. One, over delivering on relative to the incoming politics and all the skepticism, still under delivering on the science. The science says we're not there yet and we have a lot more work to do. And second, a success in bringing all of society into the room. Certainly the business and private sector, but the activist community, civil society was represented. And I think on that dimension, in addition to the government negotiators, was a big step forward that lays the foundation for future COPs. We're on at least a 30-year journey here. This is not about declaring victory after one meeting. We will never quite be there, but this was a meeting of good progress and then the opportunity to do more looking ahead.
Yeah, unfortunately, as you said, a 30-year trajectory, and yet the climate itself might intrude quite rudely in the ensuing years.
Exactly.
Rich, always good to talk to you, and I know we threw everything, including the kitchen sink, and we'll get to that later as well. Rich, good to see you. Appreciate it.
A pleasure, Paula.